I thought we were going to rise together. Seattle, 2019. I was 27 years old, working at a pet shop in Capitol Hill. He was a rideshare driver, fresh from the country. We met on a rainy midnight. He drove me home and waited until I unlocked the gate. 3 months later, he was sleeping in my bed. 5 years later, he had an imported car, an apartment in Queen Anne, and a bank account I never saw the inside of again. The change came slowly, like mold. First, it was the tone of voice. "You don't understand investments. Leave it to me." Then the way he looked at me in front of his new friends, as if I were the old couch he forgot to replace. At the office opening party, a woman in high heels asked what I did for a living. Before I could open my mouth, he answered, "She takes care of the house. I took care of us." He took care of the mirror. I started writing down the lies in a lined notebook hidden inside Buster's food container. I scheduled a psychologist at the free clinic. I opened an account he didn't know about. I kept the key to the old car, that 95 Corolla we used to share before he became someone else. He climbed up. I went down the stairs backwards, slowly, without taking my eyes off him. And now I know where the door is. I met Michael on an April morning in 2019 at the bus stop on Aurora Avenue. I was 27 years old and worked at the pet shop in Capitol Hill. Baths, grooming, bulk food, conversations with people who treated their dogs better than their kids. He pulled up in front of me in a silver 95 Corolla, fogged windows, smell of reheated coffee in a plastic cup. "Need a ride? I'm heading downtown." I hesitated, but it was raining the way Seattle rains, violent, without warning, and the bus had already passed by full twice. I got in. The passenger seat had an open notebook, highlighter pen, sheet with a table of earnings per ride. Rideshare driver, he smiled sideways, hand steady on the wheel. Michael came from Olympia 3 months ago, saving up to start a business. I told him my name. He asked about the pet shop, laughed when I told him about the poodle that peed on its owner every time it saw scissors. At the red light on Pine Street, he turned off the app, turned to me. "Can I pick you up again tomorrow?" "No, charge. Just ... to talk." 3 months later, he was sleeping in my bed. 6 months later, we were splitting the electric bill in dreams. He talked a lot about moving up in life. I thought it was beautiful. I thought we were going to rise together. But there are signs, small ones. At first, he would review my clothes before we went out. "Isn't that skirt too short?" Then he started checking my phone while I washed dishes. "Just want to make sure everything's okay." And that way of talking about my work in front of strangers, as if it were less than his. "She works with little animals. You know how it is." A year and a half later, we moved to an apartment in Belttown, 2 bedrooms. He paid most of it because now he was making investments, had joined a logistics company, wore dress shirts and hair gel. I stayed at the pet shop. Sometimes he'd come home and not even look at me. He'd look at the mirror. The night we signed the lease, he opened a bottle of cheap sparkling wine. We toasted in the empty kitchen, stacked boxer, echo on the walls. He held my face with both hands, kissed me slowly, then said, quietly, "Now you're really mine." I laughed, but the ice in my stomach didn't melt. The apartment in Belttown had cold floors and a window facing an interior courtyard where nobody hung. Michael bought a leather sofa, glass coffee table, abstract paintings he chose alone. I brought my plants, ferns, pothos, and African violet my mother gave me, but he asked me to keep them only in the bedroom. "The living room has to be clean, babe." "Professional." "Professional for what?" He never explained. The visits started on Saturdays. Colleagues from the new company, men in polo shirts and imported sneakers, women with manicured nails and big purses. I served beer, deli snack, smiled. Once, one of them asked what I did. "She takes care of the house," Michael answered before me. I took care of us. Groceries, laundry, electric bill, Buster's vet, visits, the mutt I had before meeting him. But he never said us. He said I. I paid for the sofa. I got the apartment. I invested, right? The bills got confusing. He opened a joint account, but only he had the card. It's more practical, babe. I managed better. My salary from the pet shop, $1,200 a month, went straight there. When I asked for money to buy shampoo or tampons, he sighed. "Again, you spend too much." I started writing it down. In the old hardcover notebook I hid inside Buster's food container, I wrote down everything. How much I earned, how much disappeared, how much he said we spent. The numbers didn't add up. They never did. My mother called on Sundays. Michael would answer, say I was busy, hang up. My friends stopped calling me. I stopped answering. I don't know anymore who started the silence. One August night, I came home from work, smelling like dog shampoo in my hair, hands dry from washing so much fur. He was on the couch, beer in hand, game on TV. Didn't even look. Is dinner ready? He asked. I had forgotten. I'd stayed late at the salon because Manu, owner of an old golden retriever, had a crying fit in front of me. Husband left her, 62 years old. I held her hand, stayed an extra half hour. I forgot, I said, but I can make it now. Michael got up, came slowly to the kitchen, stopped in front of me, so close I smelled the beer breath. You're not even good for that anymore, are you? He didn't yell. It was worse. It was that tone of cold contempt, calibrated to cut without noise. I didn't cry in front of him. I went to the bathroom, locked the door, sat on the cold tile floor. Buster scratched on the other side, whimpering softly. When I came out, Michael was sleeping. I went to the kitchen, opened the drawer where I kept the spare key to the '95 Corolla. That old car we still had, but that he never used anymore. The key was cold in my hand. If I ever need to disappear, I thought, this is how. I went back to the bedroom. He was snoring on his back. I lay on the edge of the bed, facing the wall. Buster climbed up, curled around my legs. I didn't sleep. Michael opened his own office in November 2020. Logistics, transportation, whatever. He never explained properly, and I stopped asking. The opening was on a Saturday night, in a rented hall in Capitol Hill. Chandeliers, vested waiters, shrimp platters. He bought me a dress. Black, tight, square neckline. I tried it on in front of him. He adjusted the strap, ran his hand over my shoulder. You look perfect, but don't drink too much, okay? You get silly when you drink. I drank water all night. The party was full of people I didn't know. Men with big watches, women with straight hair, conversations about market, margin, opportunity. Michael introduced me like this. This is Rebecca, my wife. We weren't even married, but he liked saying wife, like it was property. I stayed near the buffet, eating salmon canapés, smiling at strangers. A blonde woman, red dress, perfect fake nails, stopped next to me. She smelled like expensive perfume and white wine. You're Michael's wife, right? She asked, smiling. I am. How sweet. And what do you do? I opened my mouth. But before I could say I work at a pet shop in Capitol Hill, Michael appeared out of nowhere, hand on my waist, automatic smile. She takes care of the house, he answered. The woman made that disguised pity face. Oh, how nice. Michael squeezed my waist, squeezed hard. I felt his nail digging through the fabric. I need to talk to some clients, he said, already walking away. Stay here. I stayed for 3 hours, alone, smiling. On the way home, he drove the new car. A black Accord he had bought without telling me. I was in the passenger seat, watching the city pass by the window. Seattle at dawn, empty streets, blinking yellow light. You were great today, he said, hand on the wheel, eyes on the road. Thanks, but next time, don't just stand there alone like that. It looks like you don't know how to talk. My stomach turned. I tried, but you left me there. He laughed. It wasn't anger. It was worse. It was amusement. I left you. Rebecca, I was working. You don't understand anything about business, but try to understand the basic. At least, silent. We went up to the apartment. He went straight to the bedroom, took off his jacket, threw it on the floor. I stayed in the living room, standing, black dress still tight, heels on my feet. Buster came, pressed his snout against my leg. I went to the kitchen, opened the drawer. The key to the '95 Corolla was there. I took it, went to the bedroom. Michael was already asleep, in boxers, on his back. I went into the bathroom, locked the door, sat on the floor. For the first time, I really cried. I cried without sound, because if he heard, he'd say I was being dramatic. When I stopped, I washed my face, looked in the mirror, dark circles, chapped lips, hair stuck to my neck. I'm not going back to being the same, I thought. I didn't even know yet what that meant, but something inside me started to break. And the breaking, I discovered later, is sometimes the first step to building again. Michael started working late. He'd come back after midnight, smelling like whiskey and someone else's cigarettes, fall into bed without saying a word. I'd stay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of the elevator going up and down in the empty building. My mother called on a Tuesday morning. I was alone. Michael had left early. No breakfast, no goodbye. I answered on the second ring. "Honey, it's been 2 months since I've seen you." Her voice was tired. I imagined her in the kitchen of her house in Tacoma, cordless phone wedged between shoulder and drying the breakfast dishes. "I've been busy, Mom." "Busy with what?" "Michael won't let you out." I froze. "It's not like that." "Then how is it?" Silent, she sighed. "Come have lunch here Sunday. I'll make that roast you like. Bring Michael if he wants. But you come, Rebecca." I hung up and stared at the phone in my hand. An old Motorola, cracked screen that I insisted on not replacing. Michael hated it, said I looked poor. On Saturday, I told him about the invitation. "Your mother," he was on the couch, laptop open, spreadsheet of numbers on the screen. Didn't even look up. "Can't. I have a meeting Sunday." "But you always have meetings." He closed the laptop, slowly, looked at me. So what? I wanted to fight, wanted to scream, but I just said, "Then I'll go alone." He laughed. That short, dry laugh I learned to hate. With what car? The Accord was his. The '95 Corolla was parked in the building's garage. Dead battery, flat tire. "He never let me use the new car," said I drove badly, that I'd scratch it. "I'll take the bus," I said. He went back to the laptop. "Do what you want." Sunday, I woke up early. Put on jeans, white blouse, old sneakers. Michael was still sleeping. I left without making noise. My mother's house was far, 2 hours by bus. Transferred at the station, 10-minute walk to the wooden gate. When I arrived, she was in the yard, watering the kale. "Oh, honey," she said. Tight hug, smell of soap and rosemary. "You're thin." We went inside. The table was already set. Roast, beet salad, cornbread, lemonade. We hotches slowly talking about nothing. She asked about Michael. I said he was fine. She didn't insist. After lunch, she washed dishes and I dried. The kitchen was small, window open, green yard outside. "Rebecca," she said, hands in soapy water, not looking at me. "If you need to come back here, the door's open." I stopped drying the plate. "Mom, ... You don't have to say anything now. I just wanted you to know I went home in the late afternoon. Michael was on the couch, beer in hand, game on TV. Didn't even ask how it was. I went to the bedroom, opened the dresser drawer, got the notebook I hid in Buster's food container. I wrote, "Sunday, December 6th. Mom said the door's open." I closed the notebook, looked out the window. The sky was pink, almost night. For the first time, I thought, maybe I can get out of here, but I still didn't know how. And Michael, on the other side of the door, was still too alive inside my head. January 2021, summer in Seattle, that sticky heat, melting asphalt, ceiling fan spinning uselessly. I started leaving the house earlier, before Michael woke up. I'd make up that the pet shop needed me earlier. Lie. I'd go to Volunteer Park, sit on a bench near the playground, open the notebook. I wrote down everything. How much he made? I had snooped on his laptop once while he showered. How much I made. How much disappeared from the joint account. How much he spent on beer, on dinners with clients, on clothes, on the car. The numbers didn't add up. They never did. One morning, sitting there, a woman stopped in front of me. She must have been about 50. Short hair, colorful cloth, bag, flip-flops. "Sorry to bother you," she said, "but I see you here every week. Are you okay?" I froze. Closed the notebook quickly. "I am," she smiled. Smiled in that way that says, "I know you're lying, but that's okay. I'm a psychologist. I work at the free clinic in Belttown. If you ever want to talk, ... it's free. No commitment." She gave me a piece of paper, blue pen scribble, name, phone number, address. I took it, thanked her, stuck it in my pocket. I didn't throw it away. It took me 3 weeks to call. I scheduled an appointment for a Thursday afternoon, a time when Michael wouldn't suspect. I said I was doing overtime at the pet shop. The office was small, simple room, plastic chairs, dengue prevention campaign, poster on the wall. The psychologist, Dr. Fernandez, said the badge, greeted me with coffee in a paper cup. You came. That's good. I sat down, held the cup in both hands. Don't even know where to start. Start where it hurts most, I told her. Not everything, but I told her about the way he talked to me, about the money, about the parties where I disappeared, about the isolation, about the feeling that I was becoming a shadow. She listened, didn't interrupt. When I finished, she asked, "Are you afraid of him?" I thought, really thought, not of getting hit, but afraid of disappearing, of becoming nothing. She wrote something in her notebook, then looked at me. "Rebecca, what you just described is called psychological abuse, and it's a crime." My stomach froze. "But he never hit me. He doesn't have to," she explained to me. Financial control, isolation, humiliation, devaluation, everything I thought was just his way had a name, had a pattern. When I left the office, the sun was already low. I went home by bus, window open, hot wind on my face. Michael was in the living room, beer in hand. "You're late," he said, without taking his eyes off the TV. There was a lot of work. MMI went to the bedroom. Buster came after me, climbed on the bed, curled in my lap. I got the notebook, opened to a blank page, wrote, "Thursday, January 28th. It has a name. It has a law. I'm not crazy." I closed the notebook, hit it again, and for the first time in months, I felt something like hope, small but alive. February, Mardi Gras, Seattle empty, ghost town. Michael traveled to the San Juans with his partners, my quotes, because I never met any. He said he'd be back Wednesday, took the Accord, left me alone. For the first time in a long time, I breathed deeply. On Saturday afternoon, I left the house, went to the ice cream shop on Broadway, the one that sells dark chocolate cones, ordered 2 flavors, vanilla and strawberry, sat on the sidewalk, legs crossed, licking slowly, watching the city go by. I had forgotten what this was like, doing a simple thing without asking permission, without fear of being judged. I went home with the sweet taste still in my mouth. Buster greeted me at the door, wagging his whole tail. We went down to the building garage. The 95 Corolla was there, dusty, abandoned, forgotten. I opened the driver's door. The interior smelled like mold and old rubber. I sat in the seat, put my hands on the wheel. If I can get this car running again, I thought, I can get out of here. I called a mechanic I knew from the neighborhood, Mr. Nelson, who had a shop near the pet shop. I explained the situation. He came Sunday morning, new battery, oil, quick checkup. "It's running," he said, wiping his hand on an old rag. "But you need to use it or it'll die again." I paid with money I had saved. $50 a month, hidden inside a cookie tin in the kitchen cabinet. Money Michael didn't know existed. Monday, I woke up early, got the Corolla key, went down, started the car. The engine rumbled, coughed, caught. I drove to the pet shop, parked in front, turned it off, stayed there, hands on the wheel, heart beating fast. I have a car. I can leave. I wasn't leaving yet, but I could, and that was already freedom. That night, I went home. Michael called, said he was coming back Thursday, not Wednesday. I thanked mentally. Tuesday, I went to the clinic. Fernandez greeted me with the same calm smile. "How are you?" "Better," I said, and it was true. I told her about the car, about the ice cream, about the small victories. She smiled. "Rebecca, you're building a safety plan, even without knowing it." Safety plan? Saved money. Working car? Support network? All of this is a tool for when you decide to leave for good. I didn't say I was leaving. I still didn't know if I could, but now I had a way. Michael came back Thursday night, came home without greeting, dropped the suitcase on the floor, went straight to the shower. When he came out, I was in the kitchen, making pasta. "Where's the Accord?" he asked. "In the garage? And the Corolla?" My stomach tightened. I had it fixed. He stopped, looked at me. "With what money?" "My money." He laughed. That laugh. "Your money." I turned my back, stirred the pasta. Didn't answer. He came to the kitchen, stopped behind me. I felt his heat, the smell of expensive soap. "You're different," he said, slowly. I turned off the stove, turned to eat. Maybe I always was. and you never noticed. Silence. He left the kitchen. I stayed there, standing, trembling, but not with fear, with anger. And anger, I discovered, is sometimes fuel. March came with rain. Rain that wouldn't stop, that flooded streets, that came through the window gap. Michael was increasingly absent, came back, Lachi slept on the couch. We hadn't had sex in months, hadn't talked in longer. I kept going to Fernandez every Thursday, sometimes just to have someone to talk to. She suggested a support group, women who had gone through similar situations, meeting every Tuesday night in a room provided by a Baptist church on the north side. I went once, sat in the back, arms crossed, listening. There were all kinds of women, young, old, white, black, with kids, without kids, all with the same face, tired but alive. One of them, Joanna, short hair, tattoo on her arm, told how she left home with 2 kids, a suitcase, and $300. Today, 3 years later, she had a rented apartment, steady job, shared custody. It wasn't easy, she said, but it was possible. I went home that night thinking, it's possible. April, Michael invited me to dinner out. Fancy restaurant on Capitol Hill, place she chose, that he paid for. We sat at a corner table. He ordered wine, steak, dessert. We talked about nothing. He talked about work. I pretended to listen. At the end, he asked for the check. The waiter brought it. Michael opened his wallet, took out the card, put it on the tray, then looked at me. You could pay half, right? After all, you work. I froze. What do you mean? Well, you make your money. I pay for everything at home. Doesn't hurt to split a dinner? My stomach turned. Not with fear, with clarity. I grabbed my purse, took out $50, all I had in my wallet, put it on the table. There, I paid my part. I got up, left the restaurant, got in the 95 Corolla, parked on the street, started it, drove to my mother's house. She opened the door in a bathrobe, hair tied, eyes swollen from sleep. Honey, what time is it? Can I sleep here? She opened the door, hugged me. Always. I slept on the living room couch, covered with an old sheet. Buster curled at my feet, woke up to the smell of coffee and toast. Michael called 12 times. I didn't answer. Sent a message. Come home. We'll talk. I didn't respond. I spent the day there. My mother didn't ask anything, just Madge food, washed clothes. Let me exist. In the afternoon, I sat in the yard, got the notebook, wrote, Saturday, April 10th. I left. Still don't know if I'm going back. But today I chose. Fernandez always said, you'll know when you're ready. I didn't know if I was ready, but for the first time, I was choosing. And that, I discovered, was already halfway there. May 2021. I didn't go back. I stayed at my mother's house 2 weeks. Then a friend from the group, Joanna, with the arm tattoo, offered me a room in her house in Renton. I split rent, bought clothes at thrift stores, learned to cook from my own plate. Michael called a few times, then stopped, sent my things by shipping company, cardboard boxers, packing tape, my name scribbled on the side, inside, clothes, books, Buster, and the food container where I hid the notebook. I opened the box. The notebook was there. Whole. I sat on the floor of the rented room, Buster in my lap, and read it all again. Every note, every lie, every microviolence I had learned to. When I finished, I closed the notebook and burned it, not because I wanted to forget, but because I didn't need to carry it anymore. June, I went back to school. Technical course in veterinary assistance at community college. 3 nights a week, crowded bus, backpack on my shoulders, good tired. July, got a better job. Assistant at a veterinary clinic in Queen Anne. Higher salary, benefits, boss who didn't yell. August, rented a small apartment, studio in Capitol Hill. 1 room, window to the street, cold tile floor. But it was mine. On moving day, Joanna came to help. We carried boxers, set up the bed, hunt curtains. At night, we sat on the floor, eating cold pizza, laughing about silly things. You did it, she said. I looked around. Secondhand couch, old fridge, Buster sleeping on my bed. I did. September, I met someone, John, IT tech, messy hair, worn sneakers, quiet manner. We met on the bus. He sat next to me. We exchanged looks, started talking about nothing. He got off at the same stop as me. We went out for beer the next week. He paid for his. I paid for mine. At the end, he asked, "Can I pick you up tomorrow for the movies?" I hesitated. Michael's ghost still lived in my head, but I said, "You can, but I pay for my ticket." He smiled. Deal. We dated slowly. No rush. He never asked for my password, never checked never said I worked with little animals like it was less. But in October, there was a party, a friend's birthday. John drank too much, got loud, slurred voice, heavy hand on my shoulder. "Let's go," he said, pulling me by the arm. My whole body froze. "Let me go." He let go, stumbled, laughed. "Relax, babe. I just want to go home." But I was already standing, already leaving. I got an Uber alone, went back to my apartment, locked the door. John called the next day, apologized, said he didn't remember anything, that he'd drunk too much, that he'd never do it again. I took a deep breath. "John, I like you, but if you drink like that again, I'm leaving. No second chance." Silent. "Got it," he said. "Sorry, we ended it there." Not because he was bad, but because I learned I can leave. And that freedom, I discovered, was more important than any company. December 2021, a whole year away from Michael. I bought a used camera, old Nikon, scratched the lens, but it worked. Started taking photos. Buster sleeping in the sun, Capitol Hill Street at dawn. Plants on the kitchen window. One afternoon, I climbed to the building roof. Access prohibited, but the door was always open. Took the camera, sat on the edge, legs dangling, all of Seattle stretched out in front of me. I adjusted the focus. Clicked. The city was sharp. So was I today. 2022. I live alone. I work, study, pay my bills. I have friends. I have therapy. I have Buster old and limping, but alive. Sometimes I see Michael on the street. He pretends he doesn't see me. I do too. It's not that I forgot. It's that he doesn't fit inside me. There are hard days. There are nights I wake up sweating, dreaming. I went back to that apartment in Belttown, to that silence, to that version of me that was disappearing little by little. But then I get up, turn on the light, look around. Messy studio, clothes on the line, smell of old coffee, and it's mine. This is my honeymoon with myself. If you're going through something similar, know this: you're not alone. Seek help. Call the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Look for local resources or the nearest community health center. Talk to someone you trust, a friend, mother, neighbor, coworker. Save money. Organize documents. Have a plan. And remember, leaving is possible. Sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it hurts, but it's possible. You deserve peace. You deserve to choose. You deserve to live in a honeymoon with yourself. You know, Rebecca's story isn't just hers. It's the story of thousands of women who wake up every day thinking the problem is them, that they're not enough, that they deserve the contempt, the control, the silence. But the truth is simple. You don't need to be perfect to deserve respect. You don't need to prove anything to have a voice. And leaving isn't failure. Leaving is courage. It's choosing yourself. It's understanding that a honeymoon with your own life is worth more than any broken promise. If you're in this situation now, or you know someone who is, remember, the first step doesn't have to be big. It can be a hidden notebook, a saved key, a call to the hotline. It can just be taking a deep breath and thinking, I deserve more, because you do. And if you've already left, if you've already rebuilt, if you're already living your freedom, congratulations. You're stronger than you imagine. Now, if this video touched you in some way, if you know someone who needs to hear this, drop a like down below, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next content, hit that notification bell, and comment where you're watching from. I want to know what corner of the world you're joining us from. Let's spread this message. Let's remind each other we're not alone.